What up, my awesome viewers? Rio Gian here. So this is going to be sort of like my thoughts and feelings on the S21 FE. I'm going to be looking at this a lot because I have my trusty handed notes here, aka GSM Arena, which is a pretty freaking awesome website. Well, anyways, so the first thing with the S21 FE when it first got announced, and then I watch channels that are like Real Talk TV, X Cheetah Care or something like that. There's like these two Middle Eastern guys that come up with videos, tech videos every single day. They're like hype beasts. They're like news reporter on like every little bit of things about tech. Like they post it every single day. So, anyway, so make a long story short, it's just when I start seeing news on S21 FE, my mind was kind of like wondering why. Because at first, right, when they started sort of hinting the S21 FE, I was thinking, okay, it's going to be the S21 with micro SD and a headphone jack. Because, FE fan edition. This is the enthusiast phone because you seen how like Sony phones, right? When they do enthusiast phones, they bring it all. They bring in micro SD, they bring in headphone jack. I mean, it was the same thing with the A51. They had the headphone jack, they had the micro SD. So my train of thought was, okay, this is going to be the S21 that a lot of people that are like us that are going to buy because we like headphone jack, we like micro SD, at least that's what I think. But apparently, when the phone is going to release and all of the news and rumors and things have finally settled down, it literally is just an S21. Because, let's face it, the S21 FE does not have micro SD, does not have headphone jack. So, it's a bigger S21, maybe an S21 Plus that is a sort of not S21 Plus, but maybe the bigger screen, lower price. But to be honest, the price of the S21 is already around there anyways because of how long the S21 has already came out. So why? Like that's the thing that really boggles my mind because if it were to have micro SD and headphone jack, it makes complete sense for the re-release because I think that's what the S20 was. Back in the day of the regular S20, I think that also had micro SD, but it was $1,000. So that's a big difference, going from $1,000 to $700 with all the little minor cutbacks. That makes sense. But with the S21, it's not $1,000. It's $800, and now it's going to $700 with a couple of minor cutbacks. So, in a way, I guess it does make sense. But in other ways, I was just thinking, like, why would you do something like that? Why not have the FE, the fan edition for fans only, the enthusiast brand, to have enthusiast features? Like, how come they didn't do that? I don't know why. So when I'm looking at the spec sheet, it's 6.4 inch 1080p screen, 4,500 milliamp. So I think that was bigger than the S21. I think the S21 is 4,000. So yeah, that could have been the case. And because there's no micro SD, the biggest storage you get is 256. And we both know, you and I, or a lot of the people watching, I believe, because a lot of the people that are watching me watch my emulator videos. And if we have a lot of emulators and we store a lot of ROMs, you would need bigger storage. Even though there's the solution of, you can get a USB-C thumb drive, like what I did, and then plug it in there. Yeah, like that could work as a potential loophole around it, but with 256 gigs, it's a lot different from 512 gigs because with 512 gigs, there's more leeway. Let's say if you want to play something like me where I play a lot of like PS2 games, GameCube games, things like that. 512 gigs, I'm not saying that's a lot of storage. But I'm saying it's more leeway than 256 gigs. Because with 256 gigs, if you're someone like me and you like to store all of like the older consoles, like me, I like to store all of SNES, I like to store all of Sega Genesis, I like to store a majority of arcade games and things like that. Those pretty much eat up, I would say, about like 150 gigs right there. So with 256 gigs of play, honestly, not really 256, I believe maybe more like 230, because then like 20 or so gigs is going to be off the phone because it's going to go towards the operating system and things like that. So at the end of the day, you're probably going to have 230 gigs or maybe 200 gigs. It really depends on how that phone storage system is being managed. So 150 gigs off of just regular older games leaves you with about 50 gigs of leeway. So let's say if you want to store a lot of movies and things like that, or you want to store a lot of photos, that can be an issue. Because it's 1080p, I don't think it has the 8K feature. Yeah, I don't see that on here. So, okay. If it does record 8K, that's great. But that's also really bad because of the low storage. But if it doesn't record 8K, that's fine. I don't think we're gonna miss not recording 8K, at least not yet. So later on down the line, it could be an issue. But for now, I don't think so. I really do not see that as being a big issue. So that's the 8K part. And everything else seems pretty standard from what I can tell watching the videos of like the hands-on, because I think they have the embargo for the review. So a lot of tech YouTubers, a lot of the bigger guys actually has the phone with them. I've seen those hand-on videos, and honestly, for the most part, why not just get an S21? Right? Like, that to me makes sense. Why not just get an S21 256 gigs if such a thing is available? So, yeah, why not just do that? Why get the S21 FE? Because honestly, maybe the bigger screen, but it's also 1080p. Look into the S21 Plus, maybe. Yeah, because I think because the S21 regular edition price drop, I'm pretty sure the S21 Plus also price drop. And then if, speaking about price drop, if you want to go all the way, might as well just get the S21 Ultra. Like, that's a really good phone. Really good camera, really good specs, really good screen. Everything's pretty good. It's pretty heavy though, so that too. But if you want a lighter phone, yeah, you should really get the S21, to be honest. Like, a lot of you that are like shopping for the S21 FE, I highly recommend you check out the S21, because I feel like the S21 is probably going to check all of the boxes, because you don't have micro SD expansion, you don't have a headphone jack, you don't really have a reason to get the S21 FE. If you are going to get the S21 FE full price, like the $699, probably probably $749 if you do the 256 gigs. It really depends on how they price the 256 gigs, because if you're someone like me and you play emulators, you might go for the 256 gigs, and if you do, then you might be looking at $749 anyway. So, might as well get the S21 or S21 Plus with the 256 gigs, or go all the way, get the S21 Ultra with the 512 gigs. Like, that's there too. So, or go really all the way, get the full 3 with the 512 gigs. I mean, that too. But most likely, if you're shopping for an S21 FE, I would seriously think that you need to look at the S21 regular, because they're both plastic backs, and they're both sort of like the cheaper sort of flagship phones, mid-tier pricing kind of deal. So I feel like S21 is the answer rather than S21 FE. But maybe down the line, like a year from now or 2 years from now, when the S21 FE price drop to like $400 like the S20 FE is, yeah, that could be worth it. But if that's the case, and you want micro SD, why not just get the S20 FE? You could have just gotten an S20 FE for $300 at that time, because I think it's around $350 now for the S20 FE. And to be honest, with the difference in chipset, the performance that you get, it's really not that big of a jump going from the 865 to the 888, because I think the S20 FE has the 865. Yeah, because the Note 20 Ultra has the 865 Plus. So the S20 FE has the 865, and going from 865 to 888, it's not that big of a jump, to be honest, because you guys see me do videos on the emulation test from the 865 Plus to the 888. Pretty much very little to no change. So, yeah. If you want micro SD and you're looking at the S21 FE, look at the S20 FE and then get that with the micro SD. Or if maybe one of those Sony phones like the Sony Xperia 2, the Xperia 1 Mark II, yeah, there we go. So if that's like around $700 now, you should also consider that. Or the Mark V, the Xperia 5 Mark II, the smaller version to the Sony flagship, that one. That's the one I like. The Mark III version of the Xperia 5. That's so confusing. Yeah, so the Mark III of the 5, if it's $700, you should highly consider that. But yeah. But, you know, of course, if you really want the S21 FE, this video is not going to sway you. Because I don't think any video will. Because if your mind is like set on the S21 FE, nothing can stop you. But if you're kind of cross-shopping, if you're kind of like, hey, you know, maybe I should get this, maybe I should get that, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that, and your eyes are set on an S21 FE, but you're also kind of cross-shopping as well, look at the S21. That's like the first tip that I will give you. And then after that, look at the other options like the S20 FE if you want to go cheaper with a micro SD, or the Sony 5 Mark II. Maybe that's around the same price too. Maybe that's also $700. Or the Mark 5, no, not Mark 5, Xperia 5 Mark III. Yeah, if that also has a price drop, you should really consider that as well. But it does have some overheating issue, at least from what I can tell watching those videos. So maybe get the S21 or the S20 FE. That could have been the case. So those two phones could very much be your answer. So hopefully this video helped. Yeah, that's basically my thoughts and feeling on the S21 FE. I think it by itself is probably a great phone. Good phone, good price, good specs. But it's just the phones that revolve around that phone could be the better, much better option. And I stuttered when I said that. It's not going to go away because I will not edit that out. Anyways, if you liked the video, like, subscribe, comment, thumbs up, click the bell for more content. Also support me directly down below through local as well. Some of the phones that I mentioned, I'll remember to watch the videos to put links on them if you're interested in buying those phones and support me at the same time with no extra cost to you. Alright, you guys stay awesome.